Daniel Royce learned early how to win without raising his voice. He grew up watching men talk loudly and still lose, and others say almost nothing and walk away owning the room. By the time he was 46, he had perfected that silence. His name carried authority in places most people never entered. Glass offices high above the city, conference rooms that smelled of polished wood and expensive restraint, dinners where everyone laughed a little too carefully. He wore success like armor, tailored suits, controlled expressions, calm eyes that never revealed what he felt because he rarely allowed himself to feel anything at all. The penthouse where he lived overlooked the city like a throne. At night, the skyline glowed beneath him, millions of lights blinking like proof that life was happening somewhere else. He often stood by the window with a drink in his hand, watching traffic crawl below, feeling strangely detached from it all. He had wealth, power, recognition. People answered his calls instantly. Yet when the apartment lights were off and the city reflected back at him through the glass, the silence felt heavier than it ever had in his childhood home. There were no photographs, no personal clutter, nothing that suggested someone actually lived there. It was a place designed to impress, not to belong. Daniel told himself this emptiness was the price of success. Everyone paid something, didn't they? He paid with relationships he didn't maintain, emotions he learned to suppress, nights he spent alone instead of building a family. He convinced himself it was temporary, that one day he would slow down and everything meaningful would fall into place. But years passed, and nothing changed except the number in his bank accounts. On the other side of the city, far from penthouses and private elevators, Elena Martinez woke up every morning to the sound of buses groaning and neighbors arguing through thin walls. Her apartment was small, poorly heated, and constantly smelled of something burning from the restaurant downstairs. She shared it with her teenage son, Mateo, whose childhood had been shaped by absence, an absent father, absent money, absent certainty. Elena worked wherever she could, cleaning offices after midnight, folding laundry at a hotel on weekends, filling in shifts at a diner whenever someone didn't show up. Her body was tired in a way sleep never fixed. Elena's husband had died 7 years earlier after a long illness they couldn't afford to treat properly. Medical bills swallowed their savings. The grief never left, it simply learned to live quietly inside her. Some nights she lay awake listening to Mateo breathe, wondering how long she could keep pretending everything was fine. And yet, every morning, she tied her hair back, put on a clean shirt, and stepped into the world with a soft smile she refused to surrender. She believed dignity wasn't something money could give or take away. It was something you practiced, even when no one noticed. Daniel and Elena existed in the same city, but their lives never touched. Daniel's world was climate-controlled and buffered by assistance and security. Elena's world was exposed, cold winters, unpaid overtime, eyes that judged her worn shoes. Neither knew the other existed. And for a long time, there was no reason they ever should have met. The collapse came quietly. It didn't begin with police sirens or public accusations. It began with delayed calls. A lawyer who suddenly needed everything in writing. A financial officer who avoided eye contact. Then came the audit. Then the investigation. Daniel sat alone in his office late one night, city lights flickering beyond the glass, listening as his attorney spoke carefully, choosing every word as if each one carried weight. Frozen accounts. Pending charges. Partners distancing themselves. The company he built over 2 decades was unraveling faster than he could process. Daniel fought. He always did. He hired the best lawyers, reviewed documents until his eyes burned, replayed conversations from years earlier searching for the moment things went wrong. But the truth didn't bend for confidence or reputation. Decisions he had once justified as necessary now returned as evidence. Not everything was illegal, but enough of it lived in gray areas where power had once protected him and now abandoned him. Within months, the empire fell apart. Assets were seized. Properties sold. Invitations stopped arriving. People who once praised his vision now spoke about him in past tense. Daniel watched it all happen with the same controlled expression he had always worn, but inside, something was unraveling. Not fear. Something colder. The realization that everything he had built his identity on could disappear, and no one would catch him when it did. When he left the penthouse for the last time, carrying only a suitcase, the city looked the same. It didn't acknowledge his fall. The doorman nodded politely, as if nothing had changed. That hurt more than anger would have. Daniel rented a small room in a building that smelled of bleach and old carpet. He told himself it was temporary. He stopped returning calls from people who wanted explanations. Pride kept him silent. Shame kept him isolated. Days blended together. Nights grew longer. Money ran out faster than he expected. Opportunities never came. The first night he slept outside, he didn't tell himself it was temporary anymore. The cold was sharp, unforgiving. The sidewalk felt harder than it looked. Sounds echoed differently at street level, laughter from bars, sirens in the distance, footsteps that passed too close or too far away. Daniel pulled his coat tighter and stared at the dark sky between buildings, feeling exposed in a way he never had before. People walked past without looking. Some looked and then looked away quickly, as if acknowledging him might pull them closer to something they feared. Hunger was a new language his body spoke fluently. It changed how he thought, how he moved, how he saw others. Dignity became something fragile, something easily cracked by rejection. Elena noticed him one morning outside the diner where she worked, sitting stiffly against the wall, his posture still carrying echoes of a life that hadn't prepared him for this one. He wasn't holding a sign. He wasn't asking for anything. He just sat there, eyes distant, jaw clenched like he was bracing against something invisible. She recognized that look. Not homelessness. Loss. Without saying a word, she brought him a cup of coffee. Their eyes met briefly. He nodded once, quietly. That was all. Neither of them knew it then, but that moment, small, ordinary, easily overlooked, was the beginning of a connection that would test everything they believed about money, dignity, loyalty, and what it truly meant to be rich. And the city, loud and indifferent, kept moving around them.